Chris Hedges is a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist who, over the past decade and a half, has made his name as a columnist, activist, and author. And his latest book, America: The Farewell Tour, is nothing short of a full-throated throttling of the political, social, and cultural state of his country. After reading this, I thought Chris Hedges sees the same problems in America that I heard from Donald Trump.
He blames them on undocumented workers, on liberals, on Muslims, on Mexicans, So he's a classic con artist or a demagogue. But you do raise an important point. He tapped into the deep despair and rage that large segments, in particular the white working class, feels at having been betrayed by both of the major parties.
You call this a farewell tour. A farewell to what?
A farewell to the American empire, to America as we know it.
Is that a good thing?
It depends how the empire dissolves. Yeah, I mean, empire, when it contracts, and it will contract very quickly once the dollar is no longer the world's reserve currency, can express itself in some very frightening forms. What happens in the United States, we're not prepared at all. Our democratic, social, and cultural institutions are deeply decayed. We are also a very violent society in a way that, for instance, Canada is not, or in the way that Great Britain is not. We are awash in weapons, and not just weapons, but these are, in essence, these AK-14, not AK, the AR-14s that are used in these mass shootings in schools and concert venues and malls and are assault weapons. They're not for hunting, and they're easily accessible. So I worry that the disintegration of empire will exacerbate the kinds of dark pathologies that I spend a lot of time in the book writing about. Well, there's been a steady decline, I would say, since the early 70s, when we shifted, in the words of the Harvard historian Charles Maier, from an empire of production to an empire of consumption. So we began to borrow to maintain both an empire and a lifestyle we could no longer afford. Those began, the distortions accelerated under Reagan. The cannibalizing, that's when the cannibalizing of the federal government began on behalf of corporations at the expense of the citizenry. You know, the famous phrase, government is not the solution, government is the problem. Well, that's true if you're Goldman Sachs or ExxonMobil, but it's not true if you're a single mother trying to raise children on a substandard wage or no wage. So all of the mechanisms by which democracy was supported, by which opportunity was offered to have been slowly erased. And of course, we've been deindustrialized, as has large parts of Canada, with all of the attendant consequences that come from collapsed communities, the loss of good paying, unionized jobs.
Private companies create most of the jobs that most Americans have. So what do we do about that?
Well, I would argue that there are different types of capitalism. You had regional capitalism, so a local factory owner who lived in the community, sat on the school board, paid taxes. And then you have corporate capitalism, which is another animal altogether. Corporate capitalism is an enemy of penny and regional capitalism. And it is global, it's supranational, it has no loyalty to the nation state. And it is corporate capitalism that has distorted and kind of hollowed the American economy out from the inside. I think what was so disturbing for me writing the book was how many people have been affected, especially in the opioid crisis. I don't think the numbers begin to reflect. Great study of suicide, where he went back and tried to look, the sociologist, at what were the factors or causes that led people to kill themselves. And he talks, where he coins this term anomie, that has gripped, I would argue, at least half the country. If these conditions go unaddressed, then these pathologies will explode. I think Trump is the symptom, not the disease. He's a con artist, he's a demagogue, and I think we have to pin some of the blame on the Clinton campaign. When you go back and read the Podesta emails, they pushed Trump as a candidate because they thought he would be the easiest candidate to defeat.
In that America, what hope do empirically provable facts have?
Well, you pinpointed something that's very ominous. When national and political discourse is no longer rooted in verifiable fact, then facts are interchangeable with opinions. Truth is whatever you want it to be. You have media platforms that, like Fox News, that will propagate or disseminate these lies uncritically. In a functioning democracy, you have institutions, and you cited them, the courts, academia, the press, that their job is to make sure that people speak about a verifiable reality. Those institutions have become corrupted, weakened, destroyed. You may see reality in front of you, but reality is denied by the power elites and by the organs, the media platforms that disseminate the opinions of the power elites. And that really begins to sound like descriptions of totalitarianism someone like Hannah Arendt would write about. The original welfare program, which was cut by Clinton, 70% of the recipients were children. So you're taking a population in distress, and you were exacerbating that distress. You had job security, job safety, a pension plan, medical benefits, and a salary that could sustain a family. That's all gone. I'm advocating the overthrow of a corporate government. I'm advocating the reversal of the corporate coup d'etat in slow motion.
Propel people to rise up. What will?
The next crash. We're getting one. I don't know when, but it's coming. And this time around, the elites don't have a plan B.
So what's it going to look like?
They can't lower interest rates any more than they've already lowered them. We're already at virtually zero. America's already a failed democracy. And Trump has no ideology. It's an ideological vacuum. Unless there is sustained mass civil disobedience to put pressure on two political parties and a system that is completely captured by corporate power, then what's coming, I can assure you, will not look nice and not be good within the United States, because empires are always fragile in this sense that they depend on the control of foreign labor, foreign resources. We have 17 years of warfare now in the Middle East, feudal, endless. Meanwhile, our infrastructure is collapsing, crumbling. Public libraries are closing. Schools teachers have to buy basic supplies for students. And now we have this insane idea that we're going to train teachers in public schools to carry concealed weapons. I mean, these are all examples of a society that is completely unmoored. Within American society, we are a deeply violent culture, awash in weapons. We believe in the regeneration through violence, this myth that violence is a form of purification, and that comes out of our long history of genocide and slavery.
You started with a revolution.
Yeah.
We did not. You did.
Well, we also killed 90% of the indigenous peoples in the United States and enslaved 4 million Africans. And we've never really confronted that, that dark aspect in American history. We cling to our national myth. And so that does make us different and more dangerous than Canada.